did you know that Sony Pictures and Amazon Prime are teaming up to make a Spider-Man Noir series? That's right, they will be adapting the character from the comic books made popular recently from the Spider-Verse films. If you didn't know, and even if you did, here is a video detailing everything you need to know so far from the facts and the latest insider leaks into the series. But before we do get into that, if you guys are new around the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 30,000 subscribers. I would love if we could push that goal. Join the best Spider-Man community in the entire world. I know we can hit that goal by the end of this year. But with that being said, let's get straight into this. So first of all, for those of you who don't know who Spider-Man Noir is, let me give you a short breakdown of the character's comic history to give you a general idea of what to expect from the series. Similar to the Spider-Man we all know and love, Peter Parker was raised by Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Peter was raised during the Great Depression and was brought up to support his aunt and uncle's activism. Peter ended up finding the mutilated body of his uncle, who he later discovered was killed by his universe's Norman Osborn, who goes under the criminal code name the Goblin. This drove Peter to seek justice, and after getting bitten by a spider, Peter donned the cloak and costume to become the Spider-Man, acting out of justice for his Uncle Ben, becoming a vigilante for New York City. His origin is very similar to the one that we know from the 616 comics and just Spider-Man in general. However, from what I have just given you there in that small little description, barely taps the surface of how gruesome the Spider-Man Noir comics can be. This character is depressing, I can tell you that for free. And it seems like the series that is in development by Sony and Amazon won't hold back either. So now that you have a basic understanding of who Spider-Man Noir is, let's talk about everything that we know about the show so far. Starting off with the title of the series, it's currently undergoing 3 changes. First, the series was just called Noir, then it was changed to Spider-Man Noir, and now it's been changed to Spider Noir. The constant changing in the titles might seem a little off-putting at first, but to me it makes sense. And no, they are not pulling an Agatha Harkness. The constant changing in the titles tells me that a lot of what the series is doing isn't necessarily entirely focusing on the Spider-Man aspect of the character, but rather taking a more original route, and I'll explain what makes me believe this in just a second. Either way, Spider Noir is the settled title at the moment, but that could once again change. If you know anything about the series, you'll know that Nicolas Cage will be starring in the series as the main character, as Spider-Man himself. However, the one caveat is that Nicolas Cage won't be playing Peter Parker. In fact, the character in this series won't be Peter at all. It will be Ben Reilly. According to insider Daniel RPK, Nicolas Cage will be playing Ben Reilly and not Peter Parker. This is for 2 reasons. Number 1, first and foremost, I imagine they don't want mainstream audiences to get confused between Peter Parker of the MCU and this version of the character. And like I mentioned before with the constant title changes, my second point is that it sounds like they are probably diverting away from the source material ever so slightly, using it as a general springboard rather than following it accurately word for word. I imagine this gives them more leeway with the series, allowing them to do more original things. And I imagine this is why originally it was called Noir, and then they changed it to Spider-Man Noir, probably because they didn't want people to think, hey, this isn't Spider-Man, and now they've settled with Spider Noir, which is kind of in the middle. Variety has confirmed that the series will be 8 episodes long, similar to a lot of the recent MCU shows on Disney+. Not only do we know how many episodes the series will have, but we also know the format of the series as well. As confirmed by Nick Cage himself, the series won't be serialized but will be mainly episodic. In his own words, he described the series as being a popcorn entertainment episodic. Some fans will turn their noses up at this because superheroes and just streaming services in general usually favour a more serialized nature. Not many TV shows apart from kids shows nowadays usually do episodic TV. It is usually all serialized to follow a grander narrative that people can really dig their teeth into. And you think with a character like Spider-Man Noir that they would do something serialized, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Although it doesn't mean that the series won't have some serialized elements, Nick Cage does describe it as more of a pop art mashup, like a Liechtenstein painting with some sparkle to it. That tells me that this series' purpose is going to be more arty, inventive, and generally I imagine it to be a cinematic epic with bursting noir visuals and epic action sequences. I can see this series being more of a visual masterpiece more than anything, anything, wanting to show what a very visually pleasing Spider-Man show could do with an interesting aesthetic, such as noir. Noir films were a huge period for film in general, and were very influential to modern day Hollywood as we know it. I wouldn't be surprised if a major part of the series was spent paying homage and taking direct inspiration from that time period of films. But less on the visuals, let's move on to the villains of the series. This is where we have most of our information for the show thus far, with insiders giving us details into what we could expect, even with some actors' names attached to the characters as well. First of all, coming in from Variety, apparently this series will feature monsters. Not only that, Brendan Gleeson has been cast as a villain who has the production codename The Monster, according to Daniel RPK. Who could Brendan Gleeson be playing? Well, if we go back and look at the origin story for Spider-Man Noir, it looks like he probably will be playing Norman Osborn, aka the Goblin. Not only that, it seems like they're probably going to be taking a page out of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books, and they're probably going to be adapting the Ultimate Norman Osborn, aka the massive hulking Green Goblin that we all know and love from those comics. As we know in the Noir comics, the Goblin isn't actually a goblin in any kind of way like the Ultimate comics or even the green and purple wearing lunatic that we all know and love from the 616 universe. In fact, the Goblin is only a code name for Norman Osborn in the criminal underworld. Osborn would go on to wear a mask to cover up his true identity, which is how we ended up getting the codename the Goblin to begin with. So basically, Norman Osborn actually isn't a superpowered villain in the Noir universe. He's actually basically just the Kingpin with a cool nickname.
The closest thing you're gonna get is the fact that Norman's actual face is all mutilated due to a skin condition he actually had in the comics. But the point here is that he never was the Green Goblin in the traditional sense of the character.
However, this would actually all change a few years down the line when the video game Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions released, featuring Spider-Man Noir. The Goblin actually in this game was transformed into a giant raging monster similar to the Ultimate comics. Obviously, this was done purposely for the sake of the game, so the Noir version of Spider-Man during the missions that he had someone other than mob bosses to go up against in combat. However, I get the feeling that they are actually taking a similar route with the series if it is to feature monsters. I imagine Brendan Gleeson actually playing the Goblin and the Goblin being a monster, which leads me to believe that Gleeson will be playing Norman Osborn, but it will be the monster version of the character that we saw from the game, possibly taking inspiration from the Ultimate comics as well. Apart from Norman Osborn, here are some other villains that are meant to be appearing in the series as well, according to Daniel RPK. And those are Sandman, the Wraith, and Silvermane. Let's start with Silvermane first. As many of you will know, Silvio Manfredi is an underworld crime boss, largely associated with Spider-Man stories that feature the Maggia and gang violence. He also had a long-lasting rivalry with Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin as well. Silvermane would go on to get a cybernetic exoskeleton to aid him in combat against the likes of Spider-Man and Cloak and Dagger. I imagine in the Noir series this will likely be changed up if the theme of monsters is anything to go off of. Silvermane will likely mutate into a giant monster instead of get his upgraded exoskeleton. Moving on to Wraith, she's actually a very interesting choice for this series, and when you actually think about it, she works very, very well. Similar to her path in the Marvel Spider-Man universe, we probably will get to see Yuri Watanabe work for the police department in Spider-Noir. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Yuri hunting down Spider-Man during the course of the show, since he will most likely be a vigilante. After failing to capture him under the police department over the course of a few episodes, I imagine she will end up becoming Wraith, seeking to fight fire with fire. And last but not least, of course, we have the Sandman. Now, I don't think I really have anything much to say about the Sandman. The Sandman in general fits in with the whole monster vibe, so yeah, that'd be a cool villain for the series. Apart from the villains, the only other character that we know will appear during the series at the moment is Robbie Robertson, who according to Variety will be played by Lamorne Morris. This is interesting, as we also know the Daily Bugle is a large part of the Noir universe, and I would not be surprised that if some point down the line, we do get confirmation of Ben Urich being cast in this series as well. We know Ben Urich was a big part of the Spider-Man Noir comics, appearing in the first couple of issues. And it's really interesting that Robbie Robertson has been cast, and that probably means that there's a lot more to come that we currently don't know about yet. Either way, that's pretty much everything that we know about the Spider-Noir series at this moment in time. I will probably make several of these videos leading up to more information about the show, so make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell notification so you do not miss that when it comes out. Here you can watch my video on everything we currently know about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the show which will be premiering this fall on Disney+. Thank you all for watching. I want to give a massive shout out to the members for supporting the channel. If you do want to support the channel yourself, make sure to click the join button down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, and peace.